The 10-year anniversary is coming up of the devastating breach of the Mount Polley mine. Plus, local forestry experts are hoping that tree thinning will become more commonplace throughout the sector. And with lots of rain in the month of June, we look at whether or not it's made a difference to the wildfire front. Good evening, I'm Eddie Huband and welcome to CKPG News. Our top story, later this summer, marks 10 years since millions of cubic meters of contaminated material spilled into a drinking water network and spawning grounds. The Mount Polley mine disaster occurred back on August 4th, 2014, near Likely in the Caribou region. And a decade later now, scientists continue to monitor the impact of the breach. Dave Branco reports in tonight's top story.
These images show the surface effects of the breach in the tailings pond at Mount Polley, which spilled over 17 million cubic meters of water and 8 million cubic meters of tailing materials into the Polley Lake, Hazeltine Creek, and Quesnel Lake.
And most of it the heavy material went to the bottom of Quesnel Lake, and some of the finer material stayed within the water column of the lake and moved up the river. Up the lake and down into the local river.
For the past 10 years, UMBC has taken the research lead and continues to find contaminants in the watershed.
And we see that the concentrations of metals, but specifically copper, are elevated well above background. And that has slowly been decreasing in terms of the concentration of that material coming out of the river, or coming out of the lake into the river. It is still several times above background, but we're down at or close to the probable effects level, which the contaminants are expected to affect organisms. So it's somewhat good news, but it's still above background.
According to a tailing pond expert, the industry must move away from tailings ponds and find new solutions and innovations.
So insofar as there has been progress that has been made in terms of how tailings dams are constructed or managed, monitored. All of these, from my perspective, are Band-Aid solutions, because at the end of the day, as long as you're depositing tailings in ponds and those ponds continue to get larger, there will always be a risk of tailings ponds failures. And that's really the crux of the matter, is how does industry move away from the use of tailings ponds entirely?
As the world continues to require minerals, Dubé says it's vital that we remove minerals most responsibly.
If we're harming the environment in the production of materials that are supposed to be helping the environment, it's counterintuitive and isn't really helping progress things. And so I think the imperative really sits on management teams, board of directors, and the regulators to making sure that we're doing things in the right way so that we are respecting the environment that we operate in.
Research continues on the spill's environmental effects, which could take years to complete. 3 engineers have been disciplined for their roles. Dave Branco, CKPG News.
RCMP are asking anyone who has dash cam video or cell phone footage of the fatal crash on Massey Drive on Saturday to get in touch with them. A collision between a motorcycle and an SUV occurred on Massey Drive, resulting in the closure of the road for several hours. Authorities are currently conducting an investigation to determine the cause of this crash, which tragically resulted in the motorcyclist passing at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Police are just looking for anyone who may have dash camera footage or cell phone video that shows either the driving behavior of either vehicle before the accident occurred, or maybe even the accident itself. If you have any surveillance footage that we could use or view, you can call the non-emergency line.
At a woodlot east of Prince George, a prime example of forest thinning took place. Forest thinning is a common practice in forestry, and Anna Burrell spoke to some in the industry who believe it should be done more often.
Tree thinning is a common practice in active forest management in many parts of the world, including Scandinavia and parts of Europe, where only a portion of a stand is harvested, leaving the remaining trees better access to nutrients, water, and light so that they can reach their full growth potential.
When forests are thinned out, they become healthier. When forests are competing for sunlight and competing for moisture, then they'll start dying, and then there will be many other disturbances within the forest. And so thinning a forest is it's the right thing to do for society. It's the right thing to do for the land.
Liam Parfit, owner of Freya Logging Company, says that the goal with forest and tree thinning is to create a sustainable and durable forest for the future.
We want to make a forest that's resilient for the future, and the way that looks is by taking out some of the trees because they don't fight for the resources.
Not only can thinning help protect the forest, but it could also keep jobs in the forestry industry. All the wood harvested from this particular woodlot will stay local, going to mills in the area.
We're also creating jobs right now, and we're keeping sawmills open right now, pulp mills. Without mills, we can't do forest management. We can talk all we want about forest management and train up 100 foresters, but if there's no forest industry to pay for the bills, we just can't afford to touch many acres, right?
Thinning can also protect the forest during drought periods.
If we have a few less trees fighting over the water in the dry 2 years, those trees would be more resilient and more capable of living through that drought period. More able to push out beetles, because when you have drought trees, it gets pushed by the lack of moisture, and they can't push the beetles out of those trees.
The hope is that commercial forest thinning will become more commonplace throughout BC and in Canada in order to better protect our forests for years to come. Adam Burles, CKPG News.
As many may have noticed, Prince George experienced above-average rainfall for the months of May and June. But we're heading into a warmer spell now. So how much rain did we get? And what does it mean moving forward for the wildfire front? Cheryl Jan reports.
Compared to last year, this spring was considerably wetter.
122.9% of its normal total precipitation for June. To put that into context, Prince George saw around 80 millimeters of precipitation. If we want to compare it to last year was a much different story where it was a lot wetter or a lot drier and warmer, where last June, Prince George saw 59 to 60% of its total. So definitely a big jump up from last year.
The words on everyone's lips earlier this spring: we need the rain to keep the forest fires in check. Despite being above average for rain, it may not, however, achieve what everyone had hoped it would.
Any amount of precipitation that we do see is great to help take the edge off the fire activity. Unfortunately, it is not enough to bring us back to the normal conditions we would see. It would take roughly 2 to 3 times the normal amount, or that amount, to be back to a seasonal normal from our drought conditions that we've had throughout the years.
The Prince George Fire Centre covers an area 10 times the size of Vancouver Island, totaling an area of 33.6 million hectares. There are very, very different fire dynamics throughout the fire centre.
We kind of put it as a west of the Rockies and east of the Rockies, so things on the west of the Rockies did receive more rain than the east, so for that part of the fire center, it will be not as active. Unfortunately, in the northeast section, it is still relatively dry. In the Fort Nelson, Fort St. John area, Dawson Creek, it's still very dry.
But Environment Canada says things will be drying up very quickly in the next week or so.
We are seeing that pattern change occur. A ridge of high pressure will start to build offshore along the BC coastline and really just start to pump in a bit of warmer air mass. So we are seeing that shift in our weather pattern, where pretty much starting Thursday onwards, conditions are going to be generally stable. It's going to be sunny. And with each progressive day, we are seeing temperatures kind of rise with each day.
There has already been one wildfire of note, and that is the Parker Lake fire near Fort Nelson. Cheryl Jan, CKPG News.
So we've had a cool, rainy summer up to this point, but as mentioned, the heat wave is on the way. Saturday will see a high of 28 degrees, while Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are all looking to be above the 30-degree mark. But the city of Prince George says it will not be opening its cooling centers yet, as the heat does not meet the required criteria set out by the BC Heat Alert and Response System. Having said that, the city will be monitoring the situation daily and is still taking some action to prepare for the heat.
We have already reached out to a lot of our service agencies to make sure that they're aware that we're expecting hot weather. So I know that a lot of the vulnerable population downtown in particular will be able to utilize their resources as well. Places like Central Interior Northern Health or Native Health Services, the Pound Society, the Fire Pit are all going to be open their regular hours, and we'll have services available, and those are nice cool spaces. Other civic facilities where there's air conditioning, shops, places like that for people to go are always great places to cool off as well.
Some political news now, some provincial political news. Adam Brolls joins us to discuss. There's been some fundraising numbers that were released by the BC Conservative Party. Adam Brolls, why don't you describe what's the latest?
Yeah, so we're now in the season. The House is out of session, so now the parties are out there knocking doors, getting fundraising going to prepare for the upcoming election in October. And the Conservative Party have released their numbers for quarter two of 2024, and they raised just over $1.1 million. So that was up from Q1 of this year, but it's significant numbers for the party considering where they started, a year ago, 6 months ago. So it's pretty good numbers from the Conservative side. The NDP also released their fundraising numbers for Q2 recently. They're still in the lead in terms of fundraising for all four parties at $2.2 million. So parties are getting out there, candidates are getting out there knocking on doors, getting funds raised as they prepare for the writ to be dropped sometime before October the 19th.
And this the fundraising increase for the Conservatives, that tracks based on how the party has been growing over the last few months, correct?
Absolutely. So the Conservatives, with those additional funds raised, that means more money in their coffers to advertise, to get their slate of candidates out there. The more money you have in a political party, the more stuff you can do in terms of election campaigns, signs, yard signs, everything. So it really gives them more leverage when it comes to the campaign this fall and even now in the summer. As things start to heat up before the October 19th. So it gives them more leverage, just more opportunities to do things. And as well, it also shows the weight behind the support too. So the more money that's raised means, more people are donating. We don't know the exact donations per se, but the more money that's being raised, $1.1 million, that does indicate that there is a lot of support there, more support than we would have seen 6 months ago, a year ago. So it really shows that the tide has turned in their favor, but also for the NDP as well, that there is still strong support behind the governing NDP. There haven't been any numbers yet for Q2 from the Greens and the BC United Party, so we'll have to see where that is. But BC United still had some strong fundraising numbers for Q1, so keep that in mind as well.
So just very, very quickly, this could signal some big things that could be happening for the Conservative Party as we head to the provincial election in the fall.
For sure. It could signal a shift come October 19th, and whenever that writ drops, signaling the start of the official election campaign.
Adam Brolls, thank you very much as always. In other news, the Recycling and Environmental Action Planning Society is bringing back its free composting program, but it looks now a little bit different than it did in years past. Tommy Osborne brings us more on this program and how you can get involved.
The Recycling and Environmental Action Planning Society, also known as REAPS, is bringing its composting program back to Prince George. Unlike before, this is a drop-off based system at the REAPS Garden at the University of Northern British Columbia.
It's basically just a free service that we're offering to the community as a way to divert their organic waste from the landfills.
The program just started, so registration is limited to around 10 people or businesses, so REAPS asks you register ahead of time. Depending on how popular it is, it's possible the program could grow, and Berg Koo is excited to get it going, as she says composting greatly benefits both the environment and the community.
Organic waste in the landfill generates methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas, and in the past years, we had businesses bringing in dozens of kilograms of waste every week. We're going to use it in our garden beds once it's finished to help grow more food, and a lot of that food is going back in various ways into the community.
With these compost bins now open for public use, REAPS is really excited to help make our community a little bit greener. But it does also bring up the issue of wildlife in our city. Will these bins right here play a role in further increasing the likelihood of bears and other animals coming into Prince George?
Composting, a lot like garbage, is deemed an attractant. So there is the potential that the smell of it could bring in a bear or multiple bears. UNBC is a fairly natural area, one of the more natural areas of the city of Prince George. So we do have bear sightings throughout the year, as well as deer, coyotes, foxes.
While the potential is there, Buchanan notes there are ways to make composting safe and secure, and Berg Koo says REAPS' composting is done with proper processes, so attracting bears shouldn't be an issue.
A big part of making sure that wildlife doesn't get into your compost is composting it correctly in a way that doesn't generate a lot of smells and things like that to attract wildlife. We also have a fenced-in area to help somewhat with that.
Accepted materials are primarily kitchen waste like fruits and vegetables, which you can drop off on Wednesdays and Saturdays once you register. You can learn more on REAPS' website or by reaching out at garden@reaps.org. Tommy Osborne, CKPG News.
The Prince George Public Library is bending over backwards to help clients of the Nechako branch. Now, just over a week ago, a water leak in the roof of the branch of the library in the heart occurred. It meant the immediate closure of that branch, but as of today, the branch is opening its doors. Sort of, as patrons of the Nechako branch can now place holds on books and pick them up outside of the branch.
So we're offering curbside pickups for holds, which is something that we did during COVID. So that was actually, once it was safe for staff to enter the branch, process returns, that was something we were able to pivot to pretty quickly. So we've got a little table set up outside where you can walk right up to the door, ring a doorbell, have your library card. We'll come to the door. You can take your card and bring your holds to you.
The lowest gas price in Prince George is sitting at $1.62.9 per litre at Costco. The lowest price in the province right now is in Grand Forks at $1.51.9 per litre. Manitoba has the lowest fuel prices on average in the country at $1.39.3 per litre, while BC has an average price of $1.73.8 per litre.
CKPG Sports is delivered by Domino's. Join the Domino's Lunch Club with 25% off all regular price pizzas every day. Visit domino's.ca to join the club.
The 2024 CHL import draft took place this morning, where teams from across the CHL are able to select players from outside North America, including the Prince George Cougars. And with the 60th overall pick, the Cougars selected defenseman Arseny Anisimov from Kazan, Russia. He stands at 5'11", he's 167 pounds, and is only 16 years old. Last season with Dynamo Moskva U17, he suited up for 26 games, recording a goal and 17 assists. He also played 3 games at the U18 level. The Cougars passed on their other pick available, and this is the first time Russian and Belarus players are eligible following a 2-year ban. TSX is up 270 points to close at 22,224. The Dow Jones is up 24 points to close at 39,308. And Canfor went up 25 cents to close at $14.52.
Good evening again, everyone. A nice night tonight, and that is the start of what we're going to see going forward. Is really no disturbances coming our way at all. This ridge of high pressure that's building in, there's nothing that's going to be breaking it down for quite some time, even stretching into early next week. In fact, the peak of this ridge, the peak of the heat, will be by the end of the weekend and into our Monday, Tuesday of next week. And I'll show you on the extended when we break down the numbers in a moment. But the futurecast, this is what it looks like, and I think I've said this already, but as we go through the rest of the week, likely this is all we'll see on the futurecast. Just straight blue sky, clearing trend, and definitely no precipitation coming our way. So a pretty uneventful futurecast, and that's the way it'll remain for a little while. 31 in Kamloops tomorrow. The humidex will take that up a degree or so. 24 Vancouver, 20 in Victoria. We've got lots of beautiful sunshine right across the province. For us, we're going to sit at around 23 tomorrow. Still very comfortable, but after that, we are on track for a much more hotter trend. 25 in Fort St. John tomorrow, and lots of sunny sky there. Beautiful across our broadcast region. 22 Vanderhoof, Fort St. James, Mackenzie as well. Warmer south of us down through Quesnel, McBride as well. 23, but lots of sunny sky. So the west coast looks beautiful tomorrow. 24 degrees, and away from the water, that temperature will go up a bit. Edmonton actually really nice tomorrow as well. Mix of sun and cloud, and then mainly sunny in 24. Different story in through parts of the prairies, where we are seeing most of the rain showers and that disturbance that impacted us over the last few days pushing off to the east, so now making its way into parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So 24 degrees with clouds and showers expected in Winnipeg, with a chance of thunderstorm activity as well. Calmer further east, 30 degrees Montreal. That's going to be hot with the humidex. The same for Toronto, 28, and Halifax, 23 degrees, mainly cloudy, and a few sunny breaks expected tomorrow. So sunshine for us all through the rest of the week into the weekend. It is a heat wave across the U.S. border as well, as you can see there. And yes, we are going to see that jet stream pushing further north and allowing all of that hot air to really settle in. Overnight tonight, though, in Burns Lake, and even tomorrow night, quite cool, +1. So you're still getting down quite significantly for those overnight lows. 23, though, the day tomorrow, and then you're up to 29 and even 32 by early next week, or the end of the weekend and early next week. 8 overnight tonight for Mackenzie. A nice, pleasant day tomorrow, 22 degrees, and then warmer on Friday, Saturday. You can see it gradually. That temperature goes up as this ridge builds stronger and stronger. 6 overnight tonight in McBride, 23 tomorrow. Much warmer as we get into Friday and Saturday. Your weekend looks hot early next week as well. 32 degrees on Monday with sunshine. So Quesnel will heat up as well. 27 tomorrow, but then you're up to 32 and 34 by the end of the weekend and early next week. And for us in Prince George, very similar conditions, 31, 32 degrees by Sunday, Monday. And we are looking at that gradual build and then a real peak or spike in those temperatures by the end of the weekend and early next week. And it doesn't look like there's anything breaking down this ridge of high pressure for quite some time.
CKPG Sports is delivered by Domino's. Join the Domino's Lunch Club with 25% off all regular price pizzas every day. Visit domino's.ca to join the club.
Former Prince George Cougar Jansen Harkins has found a new home in the NHL. The forward has signed a 2-year contract with the Anaheim Ducks. Harkins appeared in 199 career NHL games so far across 5 seasons with Pittsburgh and Winnipeg. He has 31 points. Last season with the Penguins organization, he split time between the NHL and AHL, putting up 4 assists in 45 NHL games. Many in Prince George know Harkins had an illustrious junior career. Prior to this year, he was the all-time franchise leader in points, a record that was broken by Riley Heidt this past season. We go to the baseball diamond for tonight's countdown. We have stars making plays, and we have it all for you now in tonight's CKP3.
Let's begin with a bite out of the Big Apple.
And he drills this ball to left center. That's got great carry. That splashes down to the bend. De La Cruz goes deep. He's got 15. A pair of 2-run taters for the Reds and a 4-run fifth.
Ellie De La Cruz cranks his 15th home run of the year against the New York Yankees, a line drive home run, and people still question if he has power. Next, defense on a dime.
And a base hit to left. Duran can run. Jones can throw. Here's the throw to the plate. Online in time. Out at the plate. Nolan Jones has done it again.
Nolan Jones shows off the arm. A frozen rope to home plate to get the Brewers runner out and save a run. And finally, all rise.
Drill deep to left field. See ya! A bullet home run. Number 32 for Judge. The Yankees have pulled to within 1.
Michael in the pregame was saying, well, let's see what he's going to do tonight. Well, how about 3 hits, including a home run?
It seems like every third countdown, Aaron Judge is making the list. It's hard to keep him off when he's crushed 32 deep flies. He continues his historic year and also takes top spot in tonight's CKP3.
All right, folks, that's all for tonight. Thanks for joining us as always, and we will see you tomorrow. Have yourselves a great night.